Well, hello again, everyone, and here are the answers to the Star Pupil quiz, which is all about science and mathematics and technology. And usually those three subjects, along with engineering, are grouped together. They're called the STEM subjects: science, technology, engineering and mathematics. And you will find, particularly if you start to study them in more depth, there's a lot of crossover between them. And so knowledge in one area will help with your understanding in the other area of the STEM subjects. Anyway, let's get on with the answers to the quiz. And I showed you a picture of a famous scientist for question 1, and that is Albert Einstein. Not to be confused, as one student once did, with Frankenstein. Two very, very different characters. Well, for a start, Dr. Frankenstein was a fictional character from a book by Mary Shelley. Albert Einstein, probably one of the most famous scientists who's ever lived. But just to clarify, so there's no other misunderstandings on that score. And the next question was, I showed you a triangle, and I asked you the name of this type of triangle, and it was a right-angled triangle. You can see down at the bottom there, you can see the right-angled triangle. And the next question, I asked you about Internet Safety Day, and it's usually in February. It's usually the first Tuesday in February. Now, really, every day should be Internet Safety Day, because we should always be very careful and mindful about keeping ourselves safe online. But officially, Internet Safety Day is the first Tuesday in February. Question 4, solar power generates electricity, well, from the sun. So solar, and you'll see maybe in lots of places solar panels, which are trying to harness the solar power to generate electricity. Question 5, the boiling point of water is 100 degrees. So water boils at 100 degrees. Question 6 asks you what a prime number is. So it's a number which can only be divided by itself and 1. It only has two factors, itself and 1. 1 is not a prime number, so that's often catches a few people out, because it only has one factor, itself. So that's just something to remind ourselves of when we're thinking of prime numbers. And there's only one even prime number as well, so I wonder if you know what that is. And question 7, and we talked about internet safety a minute ago. What age do you have to be to have a Facebook and Instagram account? And you have to be 13 years of age. So technically, you should be 13 years of age before you have an account in your own name on Facebook and Instagram. And question 8, and I showed you that type of diagram, and I said to you a few weeks ago, I showed you the Venn diagram. And this is another type of diagram. It's called a Carroll diagram. So again, take some of these numbers. So 12 is a multiple of 3 and it's even. So it would go in the box that says multiple of 3 and even. So again, just a different way of sorting out data, but the answer to that question was a Carroll diagram. And then I also showed you a force meter, and I asked you, to show you the force meter again to remind you, and I say you will have definitely used these in your science lessons to measure forces. And the other name for a force meter is a Newton meter, named after Isaac Newton, who was a very famous scientist and did lots of work around gravity and other aspects of forces. So, question 10, the molten rock which comes from a volcano after it's erupted, that's known as lava. So the heat, molten, means it's very hot and flowing, and that is lava. And then I showed you this company's logo. So this is question 11. I showed you the logo for this company. And maybe if I hold it the right way up, that would be a little bit helpful for you. And that is Wikipedia. And I know probably a lot of you will have used Wikipedia. Maybe you've had a homework project or some research to do and you've gone to Wikipedia. And I'm not here to criticise Wikipedia, but I would just say that there are plenty of other sources of information as well. Just be very wary about just taking all your information from one source. And then the next question, I showed you those Roman numerals. So written in Roman numerals, on our counting system this would be 15. So X is 10 and V is 5. So the 10 and the 5 making 15. Question 13, unlucky for some. Beginning with C, what is the name for materials which allow electricity to pass through them? Conductors. So you say they're good conductors of electricity. And then I asked you which company made the PlayStation, and that is Sony. But I was doing a little bit of research, and apparently Sony and Nintendo were initially collaborating on became known as the PlayStation or PlayStation. But Sony obviously continued with that work, and they are the company who now market and merchandise the PlayStation. And I showed you a circle for question 15, and I asked you the name of this line that goes through the middle of a circle, and that is the diameter. So The diameter is that line that goes through the middle of a circle. Question 16, the force between two sliding surfaces, and that's friction. So when two surfaces rub against each other, then we call that friction. The planet which is furthest from the sun is Neptune. Now, when I was at school many moons ago, pardon the pun, we always thought that Pluto was the planet furthest from the sun, but Pluto is no longer officially a planet, so it is now Neptune is furthest from the sun. And then question 18, I asked you about squares, rectangles, parallelograms, kites, rhombuses, trapeziums, and they all have four sides and they're all quadrilaterals, so they all come under the category of quadrilaterals. And question 19, which of those numbers is not a factor of 20? So a factor means that it will divide equally into 20. I gave you 4, 5, 6 and 10, and the answer was 6. 4 5s make 20 and 10 goes into 20 2 times. 6 does not divide equally into 20. And question 20, I showed you those symbols. I'm sure you've seen them and used them, and maybe sometimes use them incorrectly, because there's an awful lot of them out there nowadays, and they're known as emojis. So they're all known as emojis, and I think they've even had their own film made about them. So that was the answers to those questions. I always wonder how you've got on, and as I always say, I hope you've enjoyed them. Now, there will not be a quiz next week, so there'll be no quiz next week, and they'll return again in 2 weeks' time. So there'll be something slightly different on Star Pupil next week. Probably at the beginning of the week, but just keep an eye, and hopefully you'll enjoy what I'm going to post on there next week. In the meantime, as I said earlier, keep looking after yourselves, keep enjoying yourselves. You're on your holidays, make the most of it. Be nice to your siblings, be nice to your adults at home who are looking after you. And if you've been able to go away, have a great time. And if you've not been able to go away, just make the most, say, of the time you have. I say it's a very different summer for everybody, but we all just have to carry on and do what we're told and say make the most of things. Okay, take care, look after yourselves. Okay, bye-bye.